When speaking English, your main goal is to be understood. The next step for advancing your English to be able to establish more professional relationships is to make sure your English is polite. Today I'm going to show you these ways, these methods of making your English polite, making sure that your English isn't rude, aggressive, or too direct.
Use modals!
Modal verbs such as should, could, would, may, shall are very useful for avoiding being too direct in English. So here come some examples in requests. Notice how in the modal version, the request often changes to a question. Call the client. Could you call the client, please? Get me a drink. Would you get me a drink, please? I want to use your pen. May I use your pen? Be there at 11 o'clock. Would you be able to be there at 11 o'clock? Do you see how the modal version sounds much less direct? And when it's a question, of course, you're giving somebody the opportunity to say no. So there is the idea of choice. What you're asking them to do is optional, when really, usually, it's not optional. You just want them to do it.
Qualifiers!
Qualifiers, or in politeness, words which make things seem a bit smaller, like quite, slightly, a bit, a little, or a little bit. Here come some examples. Notice how less direct the versions with qualifiers are. Move your chair. Move your chair slightly. And of course, we could also make it a question with a modal too. Could you move your chair slightly? Please, don't forget please. You are in my way, I can't see. You're a little bit in my way, I can't see.
Softening phrases!
Softening phrases. These are set phrases which turn the politeness up even more. Phrases such as, I was hoping... ... I was wondering... ... Would you mind... ... By any chance... ... Of course, don't say ... Here come some examples. Notice how the form and sometimes the tense changes when using these softening phrases. Go to the shop for me. I was hoping you could go to the shop for me. Do you have time to meet on Tuesday? I was wondering if you have time to meet on Tuesday. Make me a sandwich. That's easy one to sound too rude. Make me a sandwich. Would you mind making me a sandwich? Which bus goes to Ipswich? By any chance, do you know which bus goes to Ipswich?
Turn it around!
Of course, the opposite is also true, and this isn't a tip to make your English more polite. This is just to point out that if you don't want to be polite, if you need to be direct, or if you need to be assertive, maybe you're complaining about something, or maybe you've asked someone so many times politely to do something and they still haven't done it, then just don't use any of these things that I've told you about. Don't use modals, don't use qualifiers, don't use any softening phrases. So there are some strategies for making your English more polite, for softening your English, for speaking in professional situations, and for not being too direct. Like and follow 4 Words for more business English and communication skills tips. See you next time.